This week might be a little light on comics, but a lot of these stories carry a hell of a lot of weight. So let's see what we got this week. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is Shelf Appeal, where I go over the books that I picked up this week and give you an idea of what I thought of them and whether there's something you should go back to the shop for or not. To start off with, we're going to go with Carnage number 11. So Carnage is an ongoing series that I've had in my pull list really for a little while. And the reason that I'm doing it is because Jerry Conway is a very good writer, the art style is very good, and then overall this is the first and closest thing to a real horror book from mainstream Marvel in a long time. Overall, the issue basically starts us off in a new arc, so that's guaranteeing at least another 4 to 5 issues from Jerry Conway and this creative team, and it looks like Carnage, despite not being the most popular book in Marvel stable, is definitely a consistent seller, and it's got a dedicated fan base, like myself. We see more from this new symbiote character, Raze, but nothing really too terribly engaging. You know, she hasn't really dove into the fray yet. It's a good book. It's one that I continue to enjoy, but it might not be for everybody. After Carnage, I'm going to dip into Spider-Gwen. So Spider-Gwen 11 is continuing on this story where essentially Gwen Stacy, as you know, the Earth 65 version of Gwen Stacy, who is Spider-Woman, has lost her powers. She doesn't have them. They were taken from her by the Silk of Earth 65, Cindy Moon. And what we see is kind of like where Frank Castle's really going with this story, as well as what Gwen's kind of inner conflict is. You know, it's great to see the introduction of Reed Richards, at least having one Reed Richards in the Marvel Universe's period that is doing something, so that's awesome. And overall, he's a pretty cool kid. He's trying to help her out, get her fixed, but there is a limitation. You know, there is a very small window where she has the ability to be Spider-Woman until she can actually resolve and possibly gain back her powers, or drop out of the superhero life entirely. So that's where Jason Latour is kind of going. Really great callback into, classic Point Break. You know, it's like, Utah, give me two, Utah. And I love that. That was awesome. Immediately after seeing that, I was like, ha-ha, Keanu Reeves movie, I dig it. Cool. So I have to recommend Spider-Gwen. It's one that I'm continuing to read, and it's something that's going to be ongoing for a period of time. So yeah, if you are into that kind of concept, pick it up, and it should be enjoyable. Overall, the next few issues, after not necessarily this one, but issue 13 and beyond, they tend to see some crossover. At least that's the implication we get from the cover artwork. So definitely big things on the horizon for Spider-Gwen, and possibly, another character that's coming up later in this show. It actually is a week for Spider-Gwen, because Spider-Gwen shows up in Wolverine Annual number 1. And this is like a Freaky Friday kind of issue. And instead of being what I thought it was going to be, which is kind of like a collection of stories similar to Spider-Gwen Annual number 1, this is a body swap comedy with Spider-Gwen and Laura Kinney. So, Gwen Stacy ends up transported, and Laura Kinney ends up transported, and hilarity ensues, and there's just so much love for Jonathan the Wolverine. I can't tell you how much I enjoy the fact that he is a character in the Marvel Universe. It's awesome. So I hope, I'm really enjoying what Tom Taylor's doing with this book, and it's great to see these kind of things, and I can't wait to see it continue on in the future, so that's awesome. Then we go into a relatively unique book, and that is TMNT Universe. So this is the launching of issue 1 of this particular book, which is kind of like an overarching piece. It's not necessarily tied into the current ongoing, but it is like TMNT inside that universe. It's got a great secondary story that's illustrated by Bill Sienkiewicz, and that's awesome. Overall, not something that I would see myself picking up on the regular. I just wanted to see how likely it would be for me to dive back into TMNT. I used to pick up a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures comics when I was a kid. And you know what? This is just still a little bit... it doesn't quite have me to the point where I'm going to go out and grab it every single week. But overall, a really well-illustrated title. Looks like it's going to be telling a pretty decent story. It's just not quite up my alley. Then we dip into something that I'm really intrigued by, and that is Amazing Spider-Man issue 17. This is Dan Slott's Before Dead No More. So this is the prelude to the Clone Conspiracy, the Dead No More whole sub-series that he's going to be writing. And, okay, yeah, it's very ridiculous, and interesting what happens. The reason there's a Lady Electro on the cover becomes very apparent, and she is a character that we have seen before that had reached some sort of, untimely demise until last issue, and good God, if she doesn't just go full whole hog supervillain as soon as she knows she can. And then you've got, unfortunately, the resurrection of a person that shouldn't really have been resurrected. Dan Slott goes ahead and kills somebody, and then, a page later, he's back to life, and now he's obligated to do something for this particular person. And it's... God, I hope it doesn't get confusing, because it could very easily become confusing, and I really want it to be good. I don't want it to be bad. I want it to be good. So I'm going to go on this one saying, yeah, this is a better than average book. We'll see what goes on. Then we get to, a particular book, and talking about people, dead no more. There's a book with a ghost in the title, and that is a Tokyo Ghost. So Tokyo Ghost 10 is supposed to be the finale. I picked up the Dustin Nguyen cover, the guy that illustrates Descender, and because it's gorgeous. But overall, the real cover is great too. And the first thing that I did was I read the first 4 pages and realized I should stop reading this and read it from the beginning, because this is the first issue of Tokyo Ghost I picked up. And I have to say, I was looking immediately for a trade or something that I could read everything right now. So I'm either going to have to wait for that to come out, or I'm going to have to go on eBay and hunt down the first 9 copies, so that way I can, basically, this is going to be a binge. This is going to be me jumping into this thing with both feet, and it makes me feel ashamed that I didn't really pick this up for a long time. So, sorry, Rick Remender. I dig your work as of right now, and I will be spending more money on your comic books. That's all I can say for now. Another book that I haven't been picking up individual issues of is Saga. So Saga is a phenomenon, as I'm sure you're well aware, and this was really the best jumping on point if you wanted to pick up individual issues, because there's a whole new arc of things that are going to be kind of taking on. So I felt like this was a good point for me to go out, pick one up, and ultimately it's just a huge continuation from a story that I'm only like 2 trades into. So I was just like, okay, we're going to pick this up, and then we're going to put it back down, and we're going to go invest some time and some money into getting up to speed in these particular stories. But overall, you just can't really go wrong. Brian K. Vaughan, Fiona Staples, they're really setting a trend with this particular book. They're really capturing a lot of independent comics without having to have that kind of commercial viability of The Walking Dead, which really drives a lot of its sales. So, Saga is just a really well-conceived, well-produced, independent title that is telling its own unique story about a family in the middle of a galactic space war. It's ridiculous and it's awesome. So definitely recommend picking it up, and definitely grabbing the trades if you're not up to speed enough to really comprehend Saga 37. Once we leave Saga in space, we go to Spider-Man issue 7. So Spider-Man, this is a Civil War II tie-in, and it's probably a book that I would rather read than Civil War II, because Civil War II itself is a relatively flimsy kind of controversial piece, and it's creating conflict for the sake of creating conflict, whereas this shows individual character development and how he is being pulled between these two worlds. So that's the great thing about what Brian Michael Bendis is doing with this Spider-Man arc for Civil War II. He is looking at a giant role model versus his own personal responsibilities versus how it would affect him in his overall life. And then his friends are like, yeah, don't do it. It's just like, and then they're playing off the racial issues, and things that are kind of going along with that, the profiling and whatnot. And it's just a very close-knit, very personal story about Miles Morales that just happens to have the overarching theme of what's happening in the background in Civil War II. So that's going to be... I really like this book right now more than anything else in Civil War II, except for maybe Kingpin by Matthew Rosenberg. That's a killer book. But overall, I think that this is a book to read if you want to read about Civil War II and how its real effects take place and how they kind of upset people's individual perspectives, whether you're on one side or not. He's just talking about conflict. He's not talking about what the overall theme of the conflict is, but just how that conflict impacts individual people, and I like that. So that's probably my most interesting book out of the week. So those are all the books I picked up this week, but I want to know what you grabbed as well. So hit me up in the comments down below and we can start a conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit that like button, and then don't forget to subscribe if you want more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.